Right. Florence VILLEMINOT has joined us on set. She's been reading the French press. It's time for the French press review. Hi, Florence.
Hi, Cyril.
We've been talking about the first major scandal of François Hollande's presidency. His budget minister has had to resign. Of course, the French press is all over this. What is the left-leaning Libération daily saying?
Well, we're going to start by looking at their editorial, which says that Cahuzac, basically, he had no choice but to leave because of these allegations that he had this Swiss bank account until 2010. But Libération stresses that even if there are these serious allegations and possible evidence against him, let's not forget that he's suspected. He's not convicted. Basically, his resignation should not be seen as a confession. It's now up to judges and not the media to try him, and he deserves a fair trial, according to Libération. Le Figaro, in their editorial, also point out that
does the conservative daily give him a fair trial?
Well, they say that he was right to leave. This was the only decision that could have been made at this time, and even if he is presumed innocent, he could not stay in the government, according to Le Figaro, because he's the budget minister, and that's a very symbolic position. He's the one that's in charge of raising taxes and going after people who try to evade these taxes, so it would have been very hypocritical had he stayed in the government, especially during this acute crisis that France is going through right now, because in times of crisis it's important, according to Le Figaro, for French people not to have a shadow of a doubt that their ministers are running things smoothly. And in fact, if we look at Le Parisien, there's a cartoon where you can see what would have been the irony of the situation, where you see Vladimir Putin and Gérard Depardieu saying, do you want to become Russian? So this, of course, is a reference to another story we've heard a lot about, which was Depardieu fleeing France to Russia to avoid paying high taxes here.
And what do the business papers make of this?
Well, business paper Les Echos applauds the speed with which François Hollande reacted to this scandal. He only waited 3 hours after this formal investigation was launched to announce that Cahuzac was stepping down. So according to Les Echos, this should shut up critics who say that he's not able to make decisions. Now, on top of this, Les Echos points out that Hollande is staying true to his campaign promise, which was that his government would be irreproachable.
Total transparency.
Total transparency. There wouldn't be any scandals that we perhaps saw under previous governments, but Les Echos points out this could not come at a worse time for the government.
And the conservative Figaro also points out that the timing of the resignation, as you say, they're commenting a lot on that and the impact it's going to have on the government, which, as you say, opinion, and you've told us since the beginning of the week, opinion polls are very low.
Terrible for Hollande. He's at a record low, 31%. And on top of that, the Prime Minister, Jean-Marc today, he's going to Parliament because the opposition launched a censure motion against him for his economic policies. So he's going to have to go and defend those policies in Parliament. He's going to have to show that he knows where he's going. Now, this censure motion is it's unlikely that it will pass because the socialists have a majority in Parliament, but it's very symbolic. Now, on top of the timing of this resignation, it's also very personal for Hollande because Cahuzac was a pillar of his economic plan. He was an expert in taxes and in budgets, and he was defending, in fact, France's 2014 budget in a very hostile European environment, for instance, with respect to Germany.
And what's the press saying about the man who's going to have to fill his shoes, Europe Minister Bernard Cazeneuve?
Well, that's a lot of people are wondering, well, just who is he? Libération, rather, points out a little bit more about him. He's an old friend of François Hollande. He's not very known by the general public, but he's very well known in the European sphere because of being a Europe minister. And Libération points out that this is important symbolically. It could reassure France's European partners. He's known as being very good-natured, affable, which Libération says will be an asset given the tough times that he'll be facing as budget minister. He's persistent and hardworking and incredibly precise in his work. Libération says almost mechanic or robotic, which is why he's known as the R2-D2 in a tweed vest.
R2-D2, all right. Let's move on to a completely different story. Today is the International Francophone Day. Le Figaro takes a look at the future of the French language across the world.
That's right. Now, what how many French speakers will there be in 50 years' time? Well, Le Figaro says statistics look pretty good for French speakers. According to a recent report, there could be between 700 million and 1 billion French speakers by 2060. Now, today, there are officially 400 million French speakers in Francophone-speaking countries across the world. But if you add countries where French is spoken, like Morocco or Vietnam, where it's not the official language, well, that number is a lot more. Now, Le Figaro points out that the big leap is going to come from African countries like Ivory Coast, Chad, Togo, etc. In 2000,
A demographic growth in those countries.
demographic growth is going to really push French speaking there. In 2000, Europe represented 50% of French speakers. It'll be closer to 12% in 2050. So it's a pretty interesting shift there. Le Figaro points out that a lot of this is going to depend on
So most of
public
French
policies.
is going to be spoken outside of Europe.
That's right, exactly, and mainly in Africa. So, but this will depend on education, according to Le Figaro.
All right, Florence VILLEMINOT with the French press review. Thank you very much. We'll catch up with you later on in the day for the international press review. Thanks for watching us. Stuart Norville is back with more international news in just a few minutes. Bye-bye.